You're about to watch a video that's an excerpt of one of my online courses, free sample if you will. If you enjoy it, please get in touch, dan@brojo.org, and let me know what you think. What are thoughts? Let's address this core concept before we go any further. In my other content, I've often talked about something I call the darkness that comes before. If you pay attention to thoughts, meditate, or just sit with your eyes closed and watch them happen, you'll notice they come from somewhere. We don't see where they come from, they just seem to arrive in our conscious awareness. But they arrive formed. We don't form them ourselves. And even when we do sort of create a narrative, the bits and pieces of that narrative are served to us from some dark place. So we receive thoughts, we don't create them consciously. So even when we seem to form the scripts and stories based in thoughts, it's like reading a book rather than writing one. We sort of notice it takes shape as the thoughts form together one by one as they emerge from the darkness and attach to each other. And sometimes they come as fully formed scripts. I'm not good enough, for example, or I need to go do the washing. They just pop up as a complete sentence. And have you ever really looked at what they're made of? These bits of data that seem to float around in this weird space that seems to be inside your head, but you can also kind of see it with your eyes and kind of hear it with your ears, even though you're not really seeing it or not really hearing it. Some sort of weird illusion where you can be looking out at the real world and then also looking at thoughts at the same time. Sometimes they're bits of language, sometimes they're bits of imagery or movies or swirling colors that just have sense and feeling attached to them. It's actually really quite hard to describe what a thought is. If you were to try and explain it to someone who doesn't have thoughts, you would really struggle. What you can notice when you do meditation is that you can't freeze a thought. You can't hang on to it and make it stay still. It constantly adapts and moves every nanosecond. It's changing shape. It's usually some sort of video type idea that plays out a story. It doesn't just sit there. Even if you have the thought, say, I'm not good enough, it goes like that. I'm not good enough. It's actually changing as you read it. And then it will say something else because of this, and then because of that, and then this thing happened, and then you might get distracted and like, oh, look at that red bus. And it never really sits still, a thought. It's more like a conveyor belt just delivering these endless ideas. Sometimes they're repeated over and over, but they never stay still. Notice how the voice in your head, if you hear one, never changes its volume. It never whispers or shouts. Somebody pointed this out to me the other day, and now I'm obsessed about it. No matter what you try to do with the volume of the voice in your head, you can't change it. Notice if you're the kind of person who can see thoughts, you see like images and pictures and so on, you're not really seeing it with your eyes. In a sense, it feels like you're seeing, but if you look out at your eyes at the same time, you see whatever's happening out in the world. And the vision of the thought seems to almost be behind the eyeballs somewhere. And of course, in relevance to this course, automatic negative thoughts really do seem to pop up out of nowhere. They might be triggered by outside events, but they seem to just be delivered from the darkness. Quite often, most unbidden, you're not wanting these thoughts or asking for them, they just arrive at your doorstep uninvited. So we don't really create thoughts consciously. It's more like a musician playing to a score of music that just appears one note at a time. We feel compelled to play the notes as they arrive, but we're not actually writing the notes. So as the words I'm not good enough come into your head, you're compelled to say them and read them out to yourself, but you didn't actually write them. They just appeared and you observed them. You played them like a musician. So if you're the musician, who wrote the score? Who's the creator of this music? Who knows? Imagine how many thoughts you had yesterday. Hundreds, thousands. I mean, if each bit of thought is its own thought, if every word of a sentence is its own thought, hundreds of thousands. And where are they now? All those bits of data, all those words and pieces of language and images and sounds. Where are they in your mind? Did you put them on a shelf somewhere? Can you see them still? Can you remember even more than 1% of them? Probably not. So you pay so much attention to thoughts and you give them so much weight, and yet they're all gone within 24 hours. They're gone within seconds. So why do we give them so much weight when they're never going to stay around? If you don't act on a thought, like you play the music in your head, but you don't then transfer that into a behavioral change, what happens to the thought? Let's say you have a thought like, I really feel like eating some chocolate, but then you don't eat chocolate. What happens to the thought? I feel like eating chocolate. If I was to tie you to a chair so that you couldn't move, what would happen as these thoughts came up to you and you couldn't act on them? Let's say hours go by and you don't get to act on any of your thoughts. What happens to you? As you can probably imagine, nothing. Nothing happens. Think of dreams that you have at night. So many thoughts. You have this whole movie that plays out in your head, multiple movies, and yet you're just lying still in your bed. So you don't really act on any of those thoughts. It feels like you are in your head, but nothing's actually happening with your body. You're just lying still. Nothing bad happens to you. So this idea that you must act on a thought, that in itself is a thought, just another piece of language. I must eat chocolate. No, you can have a thought, I must eat chocolate, but you don't actually have to eat chocolate. If you don't eat chocolate, the thought might repeat, it might nag at you, it might hassle you, it might start coming up with all these excuses and reasons and trying to argue the case for eating chocolate. But if you are tied to a chair, nothing bad's going to happen to you. You don't actually need to eat chocolate. No matter how much the thought screams at you, notice that the volume never really goes up. It's annoying, it's a hassle, it's a distraction. But if you don't act on it, nothing actually happens. So thoughts are basically just noises in your head, just music that you feel forced to play, but they are not instructions. They are merely suggestions. They do not require your compliance. You must actually give permission to transfer them into behaviors. If you don't give that permission, then nothing happens. So you can't stop thoughts from happening. You're forced to hear them, you're forced to play them music, but behavioral compliance is optional.